This this is the Impressions Exchange podcast.
Impressions Exchange podcast,
where all topics impacting the graphic imaging and printing industry are addressed via in-depth news coverage, analysis, and timely interviews.
Welcome to the Impressions Exchange podcast. Today, we're going to talk about a really hot topic: artificial intelligence. AI has sort of become a buzzword, but how does it apply to the printing industry? I caught up with Onamika Dar, an economist at Printing United Alliance, and Corey Francer, analyst at NAPCO Research, about Printing United Alliance and NAPCO Research's recent report, Artificial Intelligence in the Printing Industry: The Journey Begins. We discussed some of the key takeaways, some examples of how companies are currently using AI, and some practical applications for the industry. Onamika, Corey, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us, Ashley. This is great to be on Impressions Exchange.
Onamika, let's just dive in. Can you tell me about the artificial intelligence in the printing industry report that just came out, and why was it so important to address this topic?
Well, thank you, Ashley. I'm very glad to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and share insight from our report named "Artificial Intelligence in Printing Industry: The Journey Begins." Well, this report is very important, and I feel like that artificial intelligence is changing the game in many industries, including the printing industry. Our report, the Artificial Intelligence in the Printing Industry: The Journey Begins, addresses the increasing role of AI in enhancing efficiency, automating workflow, and improving customer interaction. I think it is crucial for businesses to understand how AI can streamline their processes, predict when maintenance is needed, and use data to stay ahead of the competition. As more companies embraces digital tools, understanding what AI can do will help print businesses stay relevant and confidently adapt to this changing world.
Beautiful. So, of course, it's something from my side of the world that people are they're really interested in learning more about. And it's something I've been hearing, print service providers in the industry asking about AI. So maybe Corey, can you share some of the key takeaways from the report?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, there's a lot that went into this, and a lot of takeaways that I think, the printing industry and print service providers can really benefit from in reading the report. But really to kind of start out, I think the key thing here that's important to keep in mind is that we're still very early in the AI journey. That's why we titled the report, AI in the print industry: The Journey Begins, because we really wanted to emphasize that, to your point, Ashley, like everyone's talking about it. It's on every agenda at every conference. There's a session on AI, and it is hugely, hugely important. But it really is, something to keep in mind that we are in the early days here, and printers are really still learning about how they can benefit from implementing AI. So, another key takeaway, aside from just, really being in this learning stage, is that where printers are getting started is primarily in the content generation, marketing, PR side of things, and really getting their feet wet there before they really dive in and implement AI to a really strong degree in their production and operational processes. That can be a really good introductory way to get started with AI is, content creation, whether it's, blog posts, social media posts, marketing collateral, PR efforts, things like that can be a really good way to get started and start learning about what it can do. But with that, throughout this project, I did a bunch of interviews with some AI experts, as well as a couple printers that have implemented AI to varying degrees. And what kept coming up over and over again is, no matter how deep into AI you are, even if you are in your beginning stages, the most important thing to keep in mind is always to actually have a human providing that oversight of the AI. So what kept coming up over and over again in these interviews was to make sure that companies that are implementing AI keep a human, in an oversight role over what that AI is doing. Because, the fact of the matter is AI is a really powerful tool, and it can put out a lot of different types of content, and it can, help with social media efforts. It can even, something as simple as a chatbot on a website, can really provide some, good consumer-facing interaction and take that off of an employee's hands, which can be a great thing. But, if you think about it, then you are trusting this AI to be the representative of your company. And if something goes awry, if it, goes off the rails somehow or says something that you don't want it to, that's going to reflect poorly on your company. So having that human oversight, is going to be really important, especially when companies are learning about this and the technology is in its early days. I think maybe one other point, as like a key takeaway to keep in mind is, something that we hear a ton, and this came up in a lot of interviews as well, is printers recognize that AI is here and they're going to need to implement it to some degree in their operations, in their companies to keep up. This is, it's an inevitable technology. It's going to be part of our industry going forward. And there's concerns. Employees are concerned about, losing their jobs, having AI take over their roles. And it's a valid concern because, it is a tool that is going to take on tasks that have typically been done by humans. But, the fact of the matter is, and this was brought up by AI experts, by printers that have implemented it, it really should be looked at as a tool, not to take over an employee's job, but to make it easier, to simplify it, to, free them up to do more creative tasks or, things that, really wouldn't make sense for an AI system to do. Um, so it's kind of similar to, a few years ago when automation was, the huge topic of conversation. Well, oh, am I going to get, automated out of my job? And the reality is, no, it's just how work is evolving in the industry. And just a tool to help make employees' jobs easier and let them focus on other more important tasks. I guess just an example that came up to kind of demonstrate that is like in sales, for example. So when you think about the sales process, it's a multi-pronged approach. You have to go out and find prospects, and then once you find a prospect and qualify them, then you have to make a call and hope that you hit on a successful sale. But take an AI tool, for example, that can explore various social media platforms like LinkedIn and can target prospects based on a set of criteria, and bring those, already qualified prospects back to the salesperson. That part of the job is done.
Mhm.
And then all that salesperson has to do is go out and make those calls and hopefully they convert. But it makes that prospecting process so much easier. And that's just one example. But yeah, it's not a tool to take over your job. It's a tool to make it easier.
Right. And going back to, one of the first things you mentioned, which was content generation. This is kind of anecdotal, but I, a couple months ago had spoken with a small business owner, print service provider, and he had mentioned that he was kind of a marketing sales team of one. And I asked him how he was using AI, and his response was, well, I'm using it to generate, stuff for my website, social media posts, anything that, his time can be spent elsewhere doing, managing his business, on the shop floor, rather than sitting there and tediously trying to write copy for his website or create a blog post to share with his customers. And that's the kind of stuff that, as a business owner, it's, working smarter, not harder, and using AI to, make your day a little easier. So I like that was one of the examples that you gave, because again, I only had one example of someone I spoke to about that, but that was one of the examples that they gave of how they were using it. So super interesting. So Anamika, I'd love to, dive into it a little deeper. Maybe could you tell me, from the report, what areas of the industry are going to be most impacted by AI? And could you possibly share some examples?
Certainly. Our report also highlight key practical application of AI that can significantly enhance the strategic operation of printing companies. I can share a few examples of how printing companies are implementing AI from our reports. For example, automated quality control. Some companies are using AI to automatically find defects in printed material. These technology check for issues like color differences and misalignment in real time, ensuring a consistent quality. The next one is it's very commonly used that predictive maintenance. This refers to printing companies are using AI to keep an eye on their equipment and predict when it might fail. By analyzing machine data, AI can help them schedule maintenance before problem happens, which reduce the downtime and extend the life of their machines. The other thing I want to mention that personalized marketing campaign. Some businesses are using AI to analyze customer data and preference. This help them create personalized direct mail campaign, making their content and offers more relevant to customers, which boost engagement and return to investment. The other thing I would like to mention the print production optimization, which refers to AI. I mean, AI is also helping to improve printing schedules and workflows. By looking at order data and how machines are performing, AI figure out the best production routes, reducing waste and speeding up turnaround times. So this is very interesting. And finally, I would like to mention the customer support and the chatbot. And this is very interesting. I mean, many companies are using AI-powered chatbot to help customer with ordering or tracking shipment and answering questions from customers. So this chatbot provide quick response and improve customer service. So these are some examples that AI that is not just a concept nowadays. It's actually actively changing many parts of printing industry to make things more efficient, innovative, and customer friendly.
Great. Yeah, that's super interesting. And I know, predictive maintenance is something that I've been hearing a lot about, especially, out of Drupa and Printing United Alliance. Some of the OEMs talking about how that would be, new features on their devices using AI technology. So that's super interesting. So Corey, maybe can you talk about some of the practical applications of AI mentioned in the report and how it enhances printing companies?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a few. And it is important to just keep in mind again that this is something that is in its early stages. But yeah, there are a bunch of applications that came up over the course of putting together the report. I mean, definitely, like we talked about before, the content generation and marketing components of it. That really seems to be the primary area that printers are looking to get started in. If you look in the report, though, there is some data that shows that operations and actually getting into the workflow of it all is where they intend to go, but they're definitely looking at content generation, marketing, and PR as a starting point. But another really interesting thing that printers are thinking about, and we're starting to see a little bit more of, is machine learning, and that is becoming implemented to some degree in printers' operations. And when we talk about machine learning, really what we are kind of describing there is the machine's ability to adapt to something new and adjust for it. So the example that we describe in the report comes from the folding carton segment, and using a folder gluer machine specifically. And historically, there have been some really great functionality in these machines where there's job save, for example. So, we know that we run this type of carton a lot, so we can program it into the folder gluer, and then it can quickly adjust to its settings, reduces make-ready times, reduces setup, and it's been a great time savings. But the advancement here is that it's not just job save recall, it's the machine being able to recognize, oh, this job has some similarities to something that I've done previously, and then can adjust accordingly to adapt for those jobs, even if it's not exactly the same, which is what needed to be before with the job save functionality. It would be an identical application, but this recognizes similarities and then adjusts for it. So that was really, really cool to learn that that's happening now and that's being put into action. So that was a great example. And some other areas where this is where AI is really starting to have an impact is in some data analytics. We talked about preventative maintenance. Onamika mentioned that, which is a great example here, being able to collect data from a machine to help get some insights into when maintenance needs to occur. Another big one that I think that we'll start seeing really start to develop is on quality control as well. We've seen things in the print and packaging industry like vision and inspection systems that can locate and correct for defects or errors in printing. But as AI gets stronger, I think those tools will start to become even more powerful. And, I think similarly, where, with those systems, you might have to program it ahead of time to recognize this is exactly what we want. And it recognizes, okay, this is not corresponding to what's been programmed for me to recognize. It can actually, start to learn and recognize, oh, this is outside of a pattern that it would typically follow, or something seems off with a substrate, or, just kind of the more AI begins to advance, I think, in quality control and defect detection, it can start to recognize things outside of just what it's been programmed for, which is certainly beneficial in helping printers not send out work or have to reprint work that that they wouldn't want a customer to get. So a lot of really interesting applications. Again, we are still kind of in the early days of it. We are seeing printers really get started on the content generation, marketing, PR side, which is a great sort of intro way, but to get into AI and get your feet wet. But yeah, definitely seeing the beginnings of the machine learning, some of the QC stuff, some of the data analytics, I think is a good indicator of where things are going to go as this gets more advanced.
Right. Yeah. No, that's totally fascinating. And I'm wondering, you mentioned, maybe some concerns from people in the industry of, is AI going to take my job, or, kind of the human side of this. And I don't want to assume that's one of the challenges, but Onamika, maybe you can talk about some of the challenges or barriers in adopting AI in the printing industry, whether that's equipment wise or the human side of things.
Okay, of course. Yes, this report also outlines several challenges and barriers in adopting AI, especially for printing industry. For example, high implementation cost. The initial investment in AI technology can be substantial, which is difficult for small and medium-sized printing businesses. The other one is integration with legacy system. I mean, many printing companies still rely on older equipment and software. Integrating AI solution, which is very conflict with the legacy system and can be complex and requires upgrade. The other one is most important, is data security and privacy concern. AI systems rely heavily on data, which raises concern about data security and customer privacy. If we talk about the skill gap and workforce training, which is most important because AI adoption demands new technological skill, and lack of these adequate training personnel, this can be slow the implementation and limit the benefits of AI. The other most, frequently raised challenges is resistance to change. There can be a resistance among employees or the decision makers to embrace AI challenges, especially in traditional and family-owned businesses. Overcoming this needs education and clear understanding of AI benefits. Finally, I want to mention the uncertainty. I mean, when we apply AI in our business, so there are so many uncertainty businesses are facing. For example, some businesses, the benefit of AI may not be immediately evident without clear metrics or case studies or convincing stakeholders to invest in AI. Actually, installing AI application or technology in their business is very challenging. So these are some key challenges our businesses, our printing industries are facing right now. So yeah, we need to address these and we need to find a specific solution for these challenges to make AI more application in their businesses.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point that I think is important to call out the fact that, if a company is implementing AI solutions, making sure that their people are trained and know how to use it. I think there's I would imagine there's a risk of someone who may not be familiar with the technology putting in data that's sensitive, their customers' data or something, just throwing it into some sort of AI system, and then it's potentially at risk. So, I don't know, Corey or Anamika, if you can answer this. Are there any resources besides obviously this great report? Are there resources where people can go to learn more about, AI, what they should be doing, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've actually included a recommended reading list in the appendix of the report, which lists a bunch of great resources for both AI and big data to learn more about both sides of that equation. Because we've been talking about AI, but big data is a whole other component here, and essentially is what feeds AI to get it to do what it needs to do. So yeah, beyond the report that we put out, we do have a recommended reading list, which is I'll list it out in the end of the report. And the report is available for download, free download for anyone in the industry. Check it out on printing.org. It's also available for download across all of the Impressions Media brand resource libraries. So printing impressions, packaging impressions, in-plant impressions, and wide format impressions. Check out the resource library on across all of those sites, and it's available for download as well. And you don't even have to be a Printing United Alliance member. This is available for everyone. We want everyone in the industry to start learning about AI and start thinking about its applications for their businesses.
Yeah, and this is great. I think this is an awesome resource because it is something that we're hearing about a lot from our audience, wanting to know more about AI and really being interested in it. In fact, I just had a conversation today with someone who mentioned they're really interested in AI and actually pointed to a session that Andy did at the Leadership Summit earlier in the year as something that he was really interested in. So I will include for all of our listeners a link to the report that you can download and start diving into the world of AI. But Corey, Anamika, thank you so much for joining me today. This was so incredibly informative.
Great. Thanks so much, Ashley. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ashley.
I will link to the report we discussed today in the description so you can download it. I want to thank Anamika and Corey for chatting with me on the podcast. And I, of course, want to thank all of you, our listeners. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Impressions Exchange podcast.